Today we are in Baginton, a village that is located in the county of Warwickshire, in England. We are here to visit the Lunt Roman Fort, an impressive reconstruction of a 1st century turf and timber Roman fort. The first Roman fort was built here about the time of Boudican's revolt against the Romans. The Boudican rebellion happened between AD 60 to AD 61. The Lunt Fort was located strategically, at the junction of two major Roman roads, the Fosse Way and Watling Street. The troops within the fort would have been able to respond rapidly in a number of directions, if further trouble had erupted. The fort also guarded the route to the northwest, which enabled the Romans to advance the invasion further into Britannia. Here you can see the recreated earth, timber defenses, and defensive ditches. The original ditches would have been V-shaped. The defensive ditches would have encircled the fort. The Lunt Fort's ditch had a slot cut at the bottom of it, which was designed as an ankle breaker. There would have been at least 2 ditches, although some forts had up to 6. There are further examples of Roman defensive ditches that can be seen at Richborough Roman Fort, in Kent. The Romans used wooden forts for either permanent forts, or the winter forts used by Roman armies between campaigns. The design and features of these two types of forts were very similar. We are approaching the fort's impressive eastern gateway, the Porta Principalis. The Lunt Fort might have only had 3 gates, although most forts had 4. The double wooden gate has an observation tower built above it. The design of this gate was based upon one carved on Trajan's column in Rome. Because the fort was built from turf and timber, there are no original Roman remains still visible at the site today. But there are only a handful of reconstructions like the Lunt Fort in England that you can visit, which makes it well worth visiting, so that you can see in person what these Roman forts actually looked like. The Lunt Fort was only in use for a short period, until it was finally abandoned in AD 80. The reconstruction here started in 1966, using experimental archaeology techniques. The fort was made using similar tools and timber joints that the Romans would have used. The original post holes were used as a guide to build the gate. The wooden fort was erected by the Royal Engineers of the British Army, in 3 days in September 1970. To learn how the Romans might have erected the fort, the troops did not use any modern equipment to haul the gateway into position. Behind the ditches was a rampart wall that was built from 2 sloping turf walls. These were then filled in with earth that had been dug out of the defensive ditch. A chest-high wooden fence was then built on top of the rampart. This wooden fence had narrow slits, through which the Romans could lunge their swords against any attackers that had made it across the ditches. The walls along the eastern defenses have deteriorated over the years and are currently unsafe for the public, and couldn't be accessed when we visited. The road that we are now walking along was the Via Principalis, the road that ran across the fort east to west. This is a reconstruction of a Roman granary building, which was built in 1973. There were 3 granaries within the fort. The fort's granaries could store food supplies to last 1 year. The floor of the granary was raised above the ground to keep the food dry and fresh. These fine remains of 2 stone granaries can be seen at Corbridge Roman Fort, which is located near to Hadrian's Wall. Inside the building is an interesting museum, with lots of information, recreated weapons, armor, and Roman artifacts found on the site. There are a number of unusual things about the Lunt Fort. Roman forts were normally playing card-shaped and followed a standard design and layout, with straight walls. The Lunt Fort is unusual because it doesn't follow this design. The east wall is irregular and one end is slightly rounded. The wall bulges outwards to accommodate a circular building. The west wall followed the outline of the plateau. Before the Roman invasion in AD 43, the area was probably occupied by the Debunni tribe. Not all tribes were hostile towards the Romans. The Debunni did not oppose the Roman invasion and became a client kingdom. The Romans allowed these tribal chiefs to continue to rule. Potentially the Debunni tribe had already forged trading links with the Romans prior to the invasion. The museum also contains a number of Roman finds from archaeological digs undertaken at the Lunt. The buildings inside the fort were only made from wood, and therefore there were no stone foundation remains. The outline of each building has been marked out in the grass. The headquarters building was located between the gyrus and the granary, in the center of the fort. This was the most important building in the fort. It was the administrative and religious center of the fort. The HQ had an entrance on the south. It had a central courtyard, with administrative rooms at the back. The middle room was the shrine for the standards and had a sunken strong room. The Lunt contains the only example found in a Roman fort in Britain of a gyrus, an enclosure used for breaking and training horses. Archaeological evidence found here supports that Roman cavalry were located at the fort. The gyrus was a wooden structure, 34 meters in diameter. The floor surface of the gyrus was covered with earth or sand, and would have been kept smooth and flat. The recreated gyrus was built in 1977. The gyrus was built and the fort was reduced in size in AD 64. 2 barrack blocks were demolished so that the gyrus could be built. This figure of a mounted Roman cavalry soldier can be seen at the Roman Army Museum, at Green Head, on Hadrian's Wall. When the Romans left the site, the fort was dismantled and the wood was removed to be reused elsewhere. The gyrus was the last part of the fort to be dismantled. The barracks were located north and south of the Via Principalis. Barrack blocks were long buildings, consisting of 10 rooms for the legionaries. Each room housed 8 men. This layout was based upon the centuries' row of tents in the army's camp. A larger building at one end was the centurion's quarters. The fort contained several barrack blocks. Based upon the barrack buildings, the fort may have housed up to 500 infantry troops and 120 cavalry. The fort was abandoned in about AD 80. The Roman army had advanced north into Scotland in an attempt to conquer the rest of Britannia. These reconstructed Roman barracks can be seen at the Irregular Roman Fort, in South Shields. The stables were located in the north half of the fort. A cavalry unit normally had about 120 horses. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe and leave a comment.